to obviously move to the first speaker, which is Greg Dawson. He's a disaster reserve specialist with the USVA. He's going to be speaking on the loans that the SBA offers, specifically the business physical disaster loan and the economic injury disaster loan. Greg?
Good morning. My name is Greg Dawson. I'm a public affairs specialist, U.S. Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Assistance. As such, it's my job to make sure no stones unturned in getting out information on assistance available to victims impacted by Hurricane Sandy. Let me first of all say on behalf of the agency, our hearts and our prayers go out to everyone who's been impacted by this disaster. One thing I've learned in the last 7 years is that disasters don't discriminate. If you get in the way of one, you're going to get hurt. The first lesson everybody needs to know is you need to be prepared. SBA partners with FEMA on all presidentially declared declarations. What we bring to the table are low-interest loans for homeowners, for renters, for businesses, and nonprofit organizations. By the nature of our name, Small Business Administration, a homeowner typically registered with FEMA receives an SBA application in the mail and says, "Why are they sending me this? I'm not a business." They take that application and they throw it in the trash. That's the first critical mistake that any homeowner or renter will make. If you receive an SBA application in the mail as a homeowner, you must complete that application and get it in prior to the deadline. Everyone will not qualify for an SBA loan. For those individuals who do not qualify for the SBA loan, SBA then refers them back over to FEMA for FEMA's Other Needs Assistance Program, and those are grant dollars. There are two distinctions between the agencies. FEMA has grant dollars, SBA has loan dollars. Homeowners can borrow up to $200,000 with interest rates as low as 1.68%. Businesses can borrow up to $2 million with interest rates as low as 4%. Nonprofits can borrow up to $2 million with interest rates as low as 3%. I like to say to anyone, business or homeowner, if you're impacted, you can dial 1-800-659-2955. A customer service representative on the other end of the phone will walk you through the application process or tell you where the nearest disaster recovery center is to where you live or where the business is located. In the business case, that would be a business recovery center. I would also like to share with you on the table in the outside, there is information on all of our programs, and that 1-800 number is included in that information. You can go online and complete an application, whether you're a homeowner or a business, by going to www.sba.gov. And you don't have to take notes on this because, as I indicated, the information is out on the table. SBA is what we call a cash flow lender. Once that application is processed in Dallas-Fort Worth, people review it, and what we are looking for is repayment ability. A lot of people like to say, what kind of credit score do I need to have? The government's looking for repayment ability. When the application is processed and completed, it takes approximately 14 days to get a response back from us in terms of approval or denial. If you're denied an SBA loan, you can go 60 days for an appeal. I tell people, if it is me, I would go into a disaster recovery center or a business recovery center so that I could sit down one-on-one with a person with this SBA jacket on who's going to walk you through the application process. And let me tell you why that's my preference. Everybody remembers the oil spill. I worked and I was assigned to Orange Beach, Alabama. Every Tuesday morning, the mayor would have 1,100 to 1,500 angry people in that meeting with questions. I presented an overview such as I'm doing this morning, and after a gentleman came up to the microphone, he says, Mr. Dawson, I hear everything you're saying, but let me tell you what, I applied to the SBA and I got turned down. Mayor looked at me and he says, Greg, if this man can't get along, nobody in this room can. I get with the officer in charge, we walk out, we trace his application back to an application completed online. What tends to happen is the I's aren't dotted, the T's are not crossed, and that application may bounce back and forth. And that's what will take a long, drawn-out process. That is why I stress getting into a business recovery center. And for those businesses, there's a flyer out there with all of the business recovery centers that we have, and I think it's about 19 across the state. You want to sit down with people who can walk you through this process, because that's what they do. They know how to help you dot the I's and cross the T's. If you look at a fact sheet, typically you're going to see 2 interest rates, and above each of those interest rates, whether it's a homeowner, whether it's a nonprofit, or whether it's a business, is going to say credit available elsewhere. On the upper right of that, it's going to say no credit available elsewhere. The government basically says, in the review of this application, if we determine that your condition is such that you can go elsewhere, you're going to get the higher rate. If they determine you have no place else to go, you're going to get that lower rate. SBA, FEMA operates under what is called the Stafford Act, and those are the guidelines that we operate under. And that can only be changed by an act of Congress. Again, I caution people, if you were impacted, get into the nearest disaster recovery center or business recovery center. I have not worked in a disaster where rumors don't run rampant. Where they come from and how they get started, heaven only knows. But I can tell you this, if it relates to FEMA or SBA, if you aren't getting it from someone that has that blue jacket that says FEMA on it, or the blue jacket like I have on it has SBA on it, you're not getting it from the horse's mouth. True enough, anybody might be able to go out and get a jacket and perpetrate fraud. I say, if somebody comes knocking on your door with information about the SBA or FEMA, ask for their credentials. If they don't have these around the neck, you need to tell them you need to go back and get it and come back and see you. You'd be surprised at how many fraudulent activities go on in the aftermath of a disaster. That's because people are out there looking to take advantage of you. Again, pay no attention to what you get from other folk. On our side, everything is on a case-by-case basis. So don't listen to what cousin, Aunt Mary, Uncle John has to say about the various programs. Make sure you're getting it from the experts who present those programs. We work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce's, industrial development agencies, SCORE, our stakeholders and elected officials. Again, it's my responsibility to make sure no stone is unturned in getting out the information on assistance available. Nick, raise your hand. I want to give kudos to this gentleman, because when I came here, I met with him some weeks ago, and he has been fantastic in assisting me with various resources. We come into an area, we don't know where we're going. You know, all we know is what our mission is, and that's to make sure that the people who are impacted know and understand our program. That basically is an overview of our program. And as I said, I've got brochures and pamphlets in the back. I'll be around until this is over to answer any questions that you may have. With that, I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you.
One of the things that people should keep aware of is that this especially when it comes to the business interruption loan program. We might not have been impacted as much on the North Shore as it was on the South Shore, especially in regards to flooding. But if you're out of power for 5 days, 8 days, and if you're running a food establishment or a restaurant, that's a lot of inventory that's being thrown out the back door because you can no longer serve it. That's where that particular program covers the inventory losses.
Good morning, everyone. Every time I come to one of these gatherings, and the number of gatherings is increasing and increasing very much now as we move towards recovery, I feel conflicted because I'm sorry to be standing in front of you because it's a disaster and a tragedy that brings us together in this room. Yet I'm also honored to be here, to have been asked, as all of us feel, to come and help this great region that has done so much for our country. As I go around Long Island talking to your chambers of commerce and businesses, I'm encouraged that the recovery will pick up momentum and do well because you have so many tangible and intangible resources in your favor. I'm with the private sector division of FEMA, which is a fairly new group. We're different from SBA, but I think complementary. And Greg and I often show up together at these events and other places around the island because it is complementary. SBA brings you very tangible response to your needs. The private sector division comes into the disaster to learn from the private sector what really happened to you, what are the impacts, what are the issues for you now, and as we go forward into recovery, how do you see recovery for your businesses and your community, and to be a facilitator to get the private sector and the public sector together at the same table as you start the discussion and the planning for recovery, so the private sector interests are included, and it's really a whole community recovery, which is what everybody wants, moving towards not just getting back to the status quo ante, but being better and stronger and more resilient. Another thing that we do is we support business preparedness, and really, a morning like this, we've all been running around for 5 weeks with our hair on fire. It's kind of good to sit down to a breakfast and reflect a little bit. People go back and forth about whether or not this disaster is the worst in our country's history or the second worst. It's a big disaster. And the effects are deep and often subtle and are going to be long-lasting because it's such a densely populated area where it's so tightly interconnected. But as you look across what's happened in our country in the last decade or so and looking forward, we are becoming ever more interconnected on the sunny days. And we are motivated to move to a just-in-time economy because we have to. And that's as true for the public sector as it is for the private sector. And yet there's a tension there between the economies of just-in-time when everything's running fine and having a reserve to be resilient when disaster happens. And it's difficult to find a balance there, but it's important because we already know from the United States and around the world that resilient communities are more competitive in the global environment, as well as being better places to live. So it matters to be prepared. And we can be sure whether this is the worst disaster or the second worst disaster, it's not the last. So we encourage you to plan for continuity and recovery. I'd like to ask you, how many of you have got a continuity plan or recovery plan for your business? A couple of hands. We have some materials that I brought, some copies. I don't think I've got enough for everybody, but they're downloadable from the web. This dark blue folder is a little kit for business continuity, and it's with worksheets, a template for an emergency plan that you can download from ready.gov. And I've used these myself. They're fairly simple, but they help you to get in the mindset of being prepared, figure out the things that you can do for nothing to make yourself better prepared. Just knowing who to call to get your computers back up, knowing where the insurance is, knowing what risk you face, what the business impact is for you, when that would be, now, 6 months from now, and how you're going to address that. Knowing who on your staff, if you have staff, is going to do what, thinking about who can work from home, who couldn't. It makes a difference to have that, and it may be, it may not be a hurricane. It might just be a, electrical outage in a local community or something. But you're better off when you're better prepared. Companies function better in the normal days with that confidence. So I encourage you to get to these, look at these materials and apply them. We're producing a weekly electronic newsletter, and there are copies out on the table, and on the back it shows how you can subscribe to that. And you are free to redistribute that to other people, your employees, and we hope you'll do so. How many of you have registered with FEMA, either for your residence or your business? Okay. In the kit, there's a copy of the flyer for how to register. There are a bunch of ways to do that. One way is to call 800-621-FEMA, which is 621-3362. You can do this from your smartphone, you can do it online, or use Greg's advice, which is really solid advice. Go into one of the many disaster recovery centers around the island and sit down face-to-face with people and work through it. And if you get a letter or something, and you have questions about that, you can go back there. One part of FEMA, individual assistance. At the disaster recovery centers, they have specialists with their computers, and if you have a question, they can call up your application and your specific circumstances and talk you through that. And they're going to be around the island for a while here. It's good to go in and talk to them. It's also good to register now, because there's a deadline for the general assistance for FEMA, as Greg has deadlines for SBA. And it is, it's nominally 60 days after the disaster, which takes us up to December 31st. And you have to consider, you may think you don't have damage now, but what happens if next summer you decide, well, there is some damage up there on the roof, or something else didn't go right, and I ought to be in there. You need to be in that database and register so that you can come back and continue to talk. And thank you again for having us here. It really is an honor. And we wish you well in your recovery. It's your recovery. You make the decisions. You determine the course. We're here to support you with that. Thank you.
We'll just stay for a moment. I think it's disasterassistance.gov is the central registration for FEMA and the SBA for the disaster loans.
Yeah.
Also, I think a lot of people would like to know some of the steps, how this works, in terms of, are they supposed to go to their insurance company first and then come back to FEMA, in terms of what are the steps that are necessary that people have to go through to know when FEMA's in and when FEMA's out, the same thing for grants. You guys can bring people through that.
Okay, well, Roy, it's what we all learned in kindergarten. It is step by step, and that's important. The first place to turn is to your insurance companies. You paid for them to respond to you, and that's there for you. You need to work through that. And then while you're doing that, register with FEMA and go through this. And Greg told you about the SBA application, the importance of that.
Think of what's out here as a three-legged stool. You've got your insurance, you've got FEMA, you've got SBA. In the long-term recovery process, understand, first of all, that the government will not duplicate what it's doling out. Insurance, FEMA, SBA. I tell people, do not wait for your insurance to apply. Register with FEMA. That's the first thing you want to do. Contact your insurance company. Apply to the SBA. These are the three entities that combined should get you back to the point of where you were prior to the disaster. And I know that people are going to be denied from SBA. You might get a denial letter from FEMA. And I'm not going to speak in terms of FEMA because we talk about staying in our lanes. But when you get those denials, read to see what that denial letter is saying. It may be saying from FEMA side that you are denied because we're waiting for your insurance. Bill can speak more to that. On the SBA side, Denial typically, in almost in all cases, is due to repayment ability. In my little hometown, there's a $25 million loan program that I started back in the 80s for minority contractors. The hardest people in the world to help. I went to 5 banks and I said, listen, I've got a program. It's minority business development. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. I know banks are in business to make money. My proposition was this: you put up the money and I'll bring you good deals. It's still there. And when I go out on these situations, I say this, without fear of contradiction. Edna Dawson, when she was alive, loved this baby boy dearly. But if I went to my mom and asked for her money and couldn't show her how I was going to give it back, she wasn't going to lend it to me. Now, with that in mind, there are other resources that are available outside of the government, so sometimes we've got to do the legwork to find out where they are. I think Nick can speak to what's available from Nassau County to assist businesses that may have been turned down by FEMA. But people, you've got to understand, you've got to go through this process.
Thank you, Roy, and thank you, North Hempstead, for having Empire State Development as part of this program. We're really proud to be here with our federal partners to talk about some state programs for businesses impacted by the terrible storm. And what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the emergency business loans from the state of New York, and then I want to talk a little in more detail about some existing Empire State Development programs which could impact companies that are both impacted by the storm as well as companies in North Hempstead that are looking for capital for future growth. So again, Empire State Development. We're the Consolidated Economic Development Agency for the state of New York. We have 10 regional offices around the state. Our commissioner and chairperson is Kenneth Adams. So let's talk a little bit about the emergency loans. These are $25,000 loans, up to $25,000 loans. And these loans are underwritten by the New York State Bankers Association with capital in the fund by Empire State Development to cover losses. So these are small loans for companies that need funding to get back on their feet. I would reiterate what Greg said, is that the SBA is really the first entity to go to for long-term loans to rebuild your business. What the state is offering through the Bankers Association are small, quick loans, quick turnaround, up to $25,000. If all you need is $7,500 to rebuild a business, this is where you might want to consider. As Roy said, these loans will have no principal and interest due for the first 6 months, and then thereafter for the remainder, for the last 2 years of the loan, they're at 1% fixed rate. So these are low interest, small, fast turnaround loans. And I have to stress, these are loans. They have to be personally guaranteed by the principals. They have to show repayment ability. They're not grants. These are underwritten by the New York Business Development Corporation, who are bankers. They're going to look at your ability to repay. If there's no ability to repay, you're probably going to be rejected for these loans, and you may have to look at other sources. But again, what we want companies to do is we want companies to go to the small business development centers who will help you apply. We don't want companies applying directly to us or directly to the New York Business Development Corporation, because invariably what will happen is the application won't be complete, it'll get rejected and sent back. When you go to any one of the small business development centers, and they're closely linked to the business recovery centers, they'll help you write the application, they'll make sure it's complete, so by the time it gets submitted, we know it's complete and you'll get a quick answer. So again, there's 2 small business development centers on Long Island, one at SUNY Farmingdale and one at SUNY Stony Brook. We recommend you can call us first and we'll get you the information of where the office is. Our telephone number in Hop Hog is 631-435-0717. You can also call Nassau County for the information. Nick will provide it as well. But we want you going into those small business development centers and completing the application there. And when you call them, they'll tell you what to bring, but at the very minimum, bring your last 3 years' tax returns for business and personal, because that's going to be critical for the application process. So that's the state's $25,000 emergency loans. For larger companies that were severely impacted, and we did have some companies on the South Shore that their facilities were literally washed out. They had hundreds of employees, the facility was gone a day after the storm. For those companies, they need to call us because there could be, and there will be, other assistance available to help those companies rebuild. For example, last year in the storm for Irene, Empire State Development set up a retention program for those companies that were at severe risk for leaving the state. In other words, they had facilities outside the state, their primary facility in New York State was washed away, and the next step for them was to pick up and leave New York. For those companies that have severe retention issues, we want to talk to them directly and see and make sure that they stay in the state of New York, and we'll apply the financial resources to make that happen. I want to talk also about some other resources that could be available for both storm rebuilding as well as just rebuilding your business and growing here in the town of North Hempstead. And the primary economic development tool for the state of New York right now is Governor Cuomo's Regional Economic Development Councils. There are 10 of them here on Long Island. The Regional Economic Development Council is co-chaired by Hofstra President Stuart Rabinowitz and the Long Island Association President Kevin Law. That regional council has been very successful in bringing funds to Long Island. In the first round, and we had the first round last year, Long Island was selected by the governor as a best plan, and as a result, we were awarded $101 million in state funding to support about 75 projects. Only 4 regions in the state were selected best plans, and Long Island was very pleased to be one of them. That was round 1. So we have $101 million coming from Long Island to support projects from North Hempstead all the way to the east end of Long Island. Some of these are infrastructure projects, sewer redevelopment projects. Some of these are housing projects. We did a wonderful project with North Hempstead in Newcastle, which recently cut the ribbon. So that's the Regional Economic Development Council. In round 2, which we just submitted to the governor, it was just submitted on October 5th, we have proposals for many more projects as well. And to get involved in the Regional Council, you need to understand how the council works. You can call Empire State Development. We'll make you aware of the website. We'll also make you aware of the meetings. Every single meeting is open to the public. These are open deliberations. The public can come and ask questions in proposed projects. And then once a year, there's an open process where any business can apply for funding from the state of New York through an online application. So it's a very open process. In round 1, we awarded 75 projects. Over 200 businesses applied for assistance. In round 2, we had similar numbers. Over 200 businesses applied for assistance, ranging from individual loans and grants for small companies all the way up to major multi-million-dollar infrastructure, sewer projects, road projects. That's all through the Regional Council. We would encourage people to get very involved in the Regional Council. It's a great process, and again, it's very open. There's nothing hidden. Every council meeting is open to the public. The minutes of every meeting are posted on the website. Other Empire State Development programs that would be of assistance to companies in North Hempstead, we have direct loans for companies that want to buy buildings, improve their buildings. These are owner-occupied buildings. The state can provide funding of up to 40% in a second mortgage position for the acquisition of a building or the improvement of a building. That program is primarily benefiting manufacturing companies because that's really where the state's focus is to create manufacturing jobs on Long Island. But we could also do loans on a taxable basis for non-manufacturers. There's about a 2% rate differential. But for example, right now, we're doing equipment loans for manufacturers through a direct loan program, and we're doing them for under 2% on a variable rate basis. On a fixed rate basis, we're probably closer to 4%. And again, those can be used for businesses that were impacted by the storm as well. They tend to be longer term loans, but they're fixed rate government loans in the second position. We can combine our financing with SBA's conventional lending programs, with banks' conventional lending programs, and with IDA loans. I also want to talk about a really important program throughout the state, and that's the New York State Excelsior Jobs Program. The Excelsior program is a replacement for the old Empire Zone program. North Hempstead formerly had an Empire Zone located in the Newcastle area. That program is over, but the Excelsior program took over for that, and the Excelsior program is much simpler to use. It provides fully refundable tax credits for companies that invest in new capital investment and companies that commit to add jobs on Long Island. We've approved over 50 projects on Long Island in the last 2 years. The turnaround to get a project approved is about 30 days. That's a great turnaround compared to the old Empire Zone program, which used to take probably 3 times that amount. Again, the ideal project would be a company, let's say in North Hempstead, that commits to building a new building, buying new equipment, renovating a building, but at the same time also adding full-time private sector jobs to their payroll. The credits are based on the wages of the jobs and the investment that you make. So the higher wage jobs get higher credits. So that's the Excelsior, the New York State Excelsior Jobs Program. And again, you can call our office for information on that program. We would have an originator work with you to first make sure you're eligible, and then we would work with you on the application. And the application, again, is done online. It's a relatively simple process. We've seen some companies who have their material organized get an application done in a few hours. And then within a couple of weeks, we can give them an answer on Excelsior. But the turnaround time is about 30 days, and no investment that you make or jobs created that you make count until we approve you for the Excelsior program. The Excelsior program is really also geared towards manufacturing companies, because those are the companies, quite frankly, that can pick up and leave the state. So for manufacturing companies, they have to agree to create at least 25 jobs over a 5-year period to be eligible for that program. For non-manufacturers, an R&D company, a software company, a technology company, they only have to commit to creating 10 new jobs over a 5-year period. So there's different windows, different thresholds for different types of companies. But manufacturing companies are really where our focus is. And quite frankly, because manufacturing has the largest economic multiplier, and because manufacturers tend to bring value to this region and export their products outside the region. That's why we're focusing on it. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some other programs the state does. Empire State Development is the agency that certifies women and minority-owned businesses. So if you're a small company that wants to become certified, you would deal with Empire State Development, our division for women and minority businesses, and we do the certifications. It's something to think about because there could be opportunities to do business with the government that might be enhanced if you were a certified MWBE. We also provide training for companies that have received certification so that they know what avenues there are to receive federal, state, and local contracts. We also have a very vibrant international department. Empire State Development has specialists throughout the world, actually. We have offices in many of the principal cities around the world where we try and help New York State manufacturers to export their product overseas. And in fact, next month, we're taking a trade mission, which will include Long Island companies, to one of the largest medical shows in Dubai. So there's also assistance there. So again, while Empire State Development does have the emergency loans for businesses impacted by Sandy, I would ask that you keep in mind some of our more conventional expansion programs to assist you in the future as you grow and add jobs here in North Hempstead. Again, we're Empire State Development. You can reach us at 631-435-0717, and we'd be glad to talk about your individual project with you. Thank you.
This is the state of New York, broken up into regions. As my colleague, Barry Greenspan, had mentioned, we work collaboratively in a lot of projects, and one thing that the state did smart a number of years ago, just a few years ago, was that it aligned the regions of the Department of Labor, the Economic Development, and the Department of Education together so that we all, when someone said the Finger Lakes region, which is C, I think, and anything north of Tappan Zee Bridge I have a problem with sometimes, but yes, C, that it all meant the same thing, so that our staffs can work better together, the locals work better together, we can define and fund things better. So fortunately for Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk are typically the same, no matter where you go, but once you get north of the Tappan Zee Bridge, it kind of can change a little bit. So we aligned all of our regions, which was a good thing from a coordination standpoint. And you can see the impact Long Island, or the strength of Long Island in the total workforce, or I should say in the total population. We're the second largest region in the state. By far, Hudson Valley, a few points behind us, and then the drop-off actually is quite steep. So we represent about 17% of the total population of the state. Just a brief thing on kind of who am I in the scheme of things with the Department of Labor. I'm the Commissioner's representative. I serve as the local liaison. Though my office is in Patchogue, we have offices all over, from Hempstead and Hicksville and Massapequa, Hauppauge, and Patchogue, and even a satellite office in the Riverhead area. So I tend to move around to some of those offices. So it's just because I'm in one place doesn't mean that I don't serve both counties. And I serve as the eyes and ears for the commissioner locally, and a liaison with the business community and with organized labor and other local partners who we work with to deliver workforce services. These are our major program areas. A lot of people think right away about employment insurance as kind of the main or only thing that we do, and actually, while it takes up a huge part of our budget, there's a lot more that the Department of Labor does, and frankly, I didn't know until I came on board a little over 4 years ago, how much the department does and how much it does in proactive kind of good work rather than what people think of as the enforcement work. You know, you knock on someone's door and say, from the Department of Labor, you're a business, first thing you think of, well, what did I do wrong, kind of thing. But there's a lot of things that we do to assist businesses, and I'll be going over a few of those in just a minute. They will pretty much fall under the employment and workforce solutions, which is the second item in the bullet behind me here. That division administers the Workforce Investment Act. We fund those one-stop career centers, and just so you know, the one-stop career centers are not just for people who are collecting unemployment insurance. People think it is. We don't even administer unemployment insurance from those centers. It's all through call centers in Albany, and you have to deal with them online or through phone contact. The one-stop career centers are just that, and they're resources with professionals who run workshops and provide employment counseling. And you can be underemployed and take advantage of it. You can be unemployed and not collecting unemployment insurance and still take advantage of the one-stop career centers. And you could be a business seeking employees too, by the way. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The one-stop career centers are a collaboration of departments and agencies. We work with our local partners. In Nassau County, it's broken up into 2 township-based workforce investment boards. One that covers Oyster Bay, North Hempstead, and the city of Grand Cove. Another that serves Town of Hempstead and Long Beach. And we provide employment services, business services, apprenticeship training, and some other programs out of there. We're going to talk particularly here about business services, which are the things which I think you folks would have the most interest in. These are sort of our steady menu of programs that we offer. Either we offer them through state programs, or sometimes they're offered through programs that are administered through what we call the local partner. It's kind of seamless from your standpoint, because you just go into a one-stop and they'll take care of you. But the way the funding works from Washington, sometimes they funnel through the state, sometimes they funnel through the local entity. Shared work program is very interesting, and it's one which is probably one of our best kept secrets. And just very briefly on this, and by the way, that I have a sheet on the table outside that has a summary of most of these programs that I'm talking about and contact information on the back. So for those of you who don't have to take notes on that, you can have a summary sheet which is out on the table. The shared work program, if a company is looking to temporarily downsize because of a turn in the economy, a change in business, or even like a storm hitting like it did 6 weeks ago or so, rather than, for example, laying off 10 employees, you can take 30 employees and reduce their hours for the same net difference in your payroll. The advantage when you register and qualify under shared work is that those 30 employees can get a prorated amount of unemployment insurance. So if you're only reducing their hours by a day a week, say, doing that reduction in a larger group of employees, typically someone would not be eligible to collect unemployment insurance if they're working 4 days a week. We consider that a full week. So you would be able to get it, but under shared work, they can get that 5th day as unemployment insurance, and to get them close to being whole again. So we think it's a valuable program, and if people have taken advantage of it, tell us that, because what's your biggest cost as an employer? Probably training employees and getting a good employee and then retaining them. Well, under shared work, rather than letting them go, letting those 10 workers go, you get agreement to, well, sometimes not agreement, but you tell them, hey, you know, we all got to share the pain here. For the next few months, we're going to reduce this larger group by a little bit rather than 10 people off the board. You retain the employees, you keep them in your employ, you don't have to retrain them once business comes back. So it's a really good program, and hopefully you'll not have to take advantage of it, because hopefully business won't move down, but if it does, it's there for you. We do obviously have a great job bank, which you should take advantage of. We do human resource assistance, and people don't know that. You need help creating job descriptions or an employee manual. No charge. It's your tax dollars at work, and we have occupational analysts and other professionals who can help you in that. On-the-job training for specific sectors and entities at specific times of year, depending on funding, but we do have that available to train people on the job. Computerized skill matching is a new computer software which we use to help connect workers with employers. Wage tax credits is a future screen I'm going to show you coming up in just a minute, so I'll hold off on that, as is labor market information and health and safety consultation. The Smart 2010 software is relatively new. I always find it interesting, this slide. I didn't create those words. When you talk about government and artificial intelligence, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of gives me a chuckle. But in any case, it helps to match up. Thank you, I appreciate it. But that it helps to take a look at the resumes as it compares to the job descriptions, and to try to give more strategic matches for employers. And we help you create the job descriptions. We help the workers create the resumes so that they're structured in such a way now that the keywords mean something to each other, and can help you kind of weed out potential candidates that really might not be a good fit. So this is software which, again, state pays for. It's available to one-stops, and you can take advantage of it as an employer. Career fairs and customized recruitments. You all know what career fairs are, and we run a lot of those through libraries and other facilities. But even customized recruitments, if you have a project coming up, or a need for a certain type of employee, or you have some growth that you're expecting, or you're going to be relocating on the island from one place to another, we can set up a customized recruitment effort where we'll do outreach to potential workers and help to staff it for you too. The wage tax credits, there's a broad range of tax credits, and I won't get into all of them, but basically they are incentives for businesses to hire people who are in certain classes. Meaning that for veterans, for youth, for people with disabilities, and a number of other categories. And I mentioned the New York Youth Works program, which is a specific one which was put in place earlier this year. It's sunsetting this month, but we expect it to be re-energized next year in hopefully an improved way. Right now, it just applies to young people who reside in the townships of Hempstead and Brookhaven. We're hoping that, and other places upstate, but on Long Island, it's just Hempstead and Brookhaven. It was a pilot project this year. We met all our benchmarks. We kind of have some lessons learned, which we'll be applying to a 2013 program, and the hope is that it'll be expanded to other communities. From a business standpoint, you don't have to be in Brookhaven or Hempstead. Even if it stays the same, you can be an employer anywhere on Long Island and be an employer for the New York Youth Works program, which takes young people, gives them some work readiness training, and then gets them into the workforce. research and statistics, just finding data sometimes about workforce trends, about skill gaps among workers that are out there. Labor market information could be very valuable to you as employers. And we have a wealth of information on our website. I mean, it's kind of difficult to read from there, but the main thing would be that URL, which has a few too many slashes and stuff, but it's labor.ny.gov, which is our regular website, and then you go stats/LON, and that will get you to the Long Island page. And there's all kinds of good stuff there in terms of labor market trends and the economy in general. So you can, and if there's stuff that you need, information that you need in terms of anything economic that you think could be of value, call us, because we may have that data and it's just not crunched in the right way, and our labor market analysts can see if the data exists and can be given to you in the way that you need it to be helpful. I mean, there's all kinds of data that we have. I just want to throw up a couple of examples here, which this is kind of gives a sense of what the recession has been or was and has been like as compared to previous recessions. If you take a look at the peak at 1992 on the left side there, it was a fairly small peak that then went right back down a little above 8%. The interesting thing when you look at the current recession, this is an older chart, stops at March 2011, but if it were to continue to the right side, you would continue to see it float at about 7%. You see that today's recession and the impact on unemployment is much greater from a time standpoint, and that's what makes the time we're living in now even more unique and more difficult and challenging. It's the length of time that unemployment is up and the length of time that people are remaining unemployed and the number of what we call discouraged workers out there and people who have really given up hope. And we're always trying to reach out to them to get them back in, but it's not easy. This is kind of looks at the situation another way in terms of job growth, starting all the way on the left on January 2007, how we were gaining almost 20,000 private sector jobs per month as compared to the previous year. These are year-over-year numbers, because we don't look at month-to-month because of fluctuations that are seasonal here on the island. We look kind of year-over-year. And you see how it really began to dip down right there in May 2008. Right, May 2000, I should know that, yes, May 2008 is when it changed from positive growth to negative growth. It hit its big dip and then gained back up. And we're now gaining between 10 and 20,000 jobs a month in the private sector. And when you see job losses begin June 2008, can anyone tell me what happened right then that caused that? Anybody know?
Presidential election.
Well, no, actually, I started my job at the New York State Department of Labor. So, it's my fault, yes. But I'm used to it. My people have been blamed for things for 5,760 something years, so, what's just one more thing, right? So, we also provide health and safety consultation. And this is, again, one of those things that few people know about. If you have workplace issues that are safety issues, we can come in as confidential and separate from OSHA. No fines or penalties are levied, and you get a 2-year exemption from an OSHA inspection. And so we'll come in and say, wow, you've got some dangerous stuff going on here. Now you have to fix it, how we advise you, but you get that 2-year exemption, and OSHA won't come back for 2 years. And so it's just something you may want to take advantage of, particularly in some of this post-storm era here, where you may not know if something that's damaged has been structurally hurt in some way. Our inspectors can come in and give you some advice on that. Disaster unemployment assistance, this applies to people who are business owners or self-employed as well. Even if you were just out of work for a few days after the storm, we encourage you to apply for disaster unemployment assistance. You go on our regular website or the phone number that's on the flyers outside. And there's no waiting period, which is good, unlike regular unemployment insurance that has a 1 week waiting period. Our website has the information here, and I'll take any questions afterwards. I thank you for your attention.
I want to talk to you about a few programs that Nassau County has launched. The first one kind of leads into the second. So, industrial development agencies, if you guys don't know, they're agencies that are they're public authorities with authority granted through New York State. We're able to give tax benefits out to companies that are either going to create new jobs or retain the jobs they currently have. We are not taxpayer funded. All of our revenue is generated from deal income. Traditionally, to qualify for an IDA deal, there was a certain financial threshold that businesses had to meet. Otherwise, it didn't make any sense. But County Executive Ed Mangano started his career as a small business owner, and he said, well, wait a second, we're pricing out the small and mid-sized business community from these incentives. It's not really fair. So what can we do to help the small and mid-sized business owner? So we came up with a new program called LEADS, where we're able to give a sales tax exemption letter to qualifying small businesses, and small businesses in New York State are defined as 100 or fewer employees, to help them purchase whatever they need to stay in business in Nassau County. Furniture, fixtures, equipment, computers, telephones, anything that that closes the gap between capital improvements and inventory that a small business owner may need to purchase. And we're able to do it at dramatically reduced fees. You can receive up to $99,000 of financial assistance through this program, which equals $1.15 million in spending for a fee of a little over $1,000, which goes towards a background check and some administrative costs on our end. At the smaller end of the spectrum, you could receive up to $25,000 in financial assistance for $500. So it's a really business-friendly program. We launched this in October. Well, it was very fortuitous that we came up with this program in mid-October because a few weeks later, the storm hit. So the county executive came back to our staff and said, okay, well now what? We need to take this one step further. So we trimmed down the LEADS program even more. There are no fees now. The application is one page. And for any business that was affected by the hurricane, we can provide a sales tax letter completely for free. All they have to do is swear that they were affected by the storm. They need to go purchase new furniture, new carpeting, new flooring, whatever it is. We can provide them a sales tax letter completely for free. And we're doing these closings around the clock. We've done 50 so far and have given out well over $500,000 in financial assistance. And the business owners walk out of our office with a letter that has real value. And it's an immediate thing, and they are very, very happy. Of course, the county, the state, we don't have grants to give, but we do have this, and it does help. In addition to this, the county set up a business recovery program where we're encouraging any business that was affected by the storm to contact our office. We have a dedicated hotline, 516-571-1745, a dedicated email address, leads, L-E-A-D-S, at nassauida.org, and a website, nassauBackInBusiness.org. We encourage business owners to go to the website. Do we have internet access here?
We do.
Oh, you shut down the door. nassauBackInBusiness.org. There's a compilation of information. Everything that you heard here today is on our website, with links to the various agencies and departments. We've received probably close to 500 inquiries since the storm hit from businesses who need information and want to know what assistance is available. Well, anybody who's worked with IDAs, especially my IDA, knows we're pretty short-staffed, about 4 of us. We don't have the facilities in-house to handle all of these inquiries. So we created a program where we've encouraged institutions in the county to pledge volunteers. So as of now, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, JP Morgan Chase, and TD Bank all have pledged small business bankers and small business accountants to help us facilitate these calls and emails. A business owner either calls or emails or goes to our website. We create a case file. That case file is then sent out to one of the volunteers. That volunteer now follows that business for the life of his issue. The volunteer will call the business owner and say, hi,
I'm so-and-so, I'm working with the Nassau County Business Recovery Program. I know you're interested in an SBA loan. Contact Greg. The small business owner will contact Greg. A few days later, my volunteer will call that business owner back and say, hey, have you heard from Greg? How's it going? What can we do to help? How can we push this along further? We want to serve as a real one-stop shop and ombudsman to the small business community in Nassau County. So we hope it's effective. We hope it's something that you guys can take advantage of. Please ask that you tell your colleagues, your contacts that we have these programs available. So in short, if your business was not affected by the storm, we can provide you with a sales tax exemption letter for any of your purchases that you need to make to keep your business here for a small fee, and it takes some time. Within 7 to 10 days, we can close the deal. If your business was affected by the storm, it's a one-page application, no fee, and we can close you in 2 to 3 days. We're doing closings at night. We're doing closings on Sundays. We're working literally as fast as we can to accommodate the business community. I'm happy to take any questions now or afterwards. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure. Long Island Development Corporation has been working with the town of North Hempstead for almost 30 years. We're pleased to have Roy Smithheimer on our board of directors, and also pleased to see another of our board members here, Nat Rosenfeld, former Commissioner of Economic Development for New York State. I'm here to talk about 2 specific lending programs that can help your businesses recover from Superstorm Sandy. But first, I'd like to point out, as you leave today, please take from the table outside 2 pieces of paper. One of them is labeled Summary of Resources for Small Businesses Adversely Affected by Superstorm Sandy. This is a summary of all of the resources you've heard about today, a description of the program, contact and access information, ranging from FEMA to SBA to the New York State's Emergency Loan Program to the Sales Tax Exemption, Department of Labor. It also lists one additional program I want to mention. For those of you in your business who are covered by insurance, but you're not getting those insurance checks fast enough, and you need some money right now, one of your Port Washington residents, Neil Seiden from Asset Enhancement Solutions, has created a bridge funding program where you can get some interim funding against that insurance claim. It's not a cheap program by any means, but it's money available right now. So that's also listed in the summary of resources. The other piece of paper I'd like you to pick up is called Valuated Resources for Small Businesses and Nonprofits on Long Island. This is a summary of all of the government-related economic development programs for small businesses here on Long Island, ranging from financing, whether you're looking to buy a building for your business or renovate or buy equipment, or you need working capital, or you need venture capital or microloans, to small business assistance from the Department of Labor, from groups like the Small Business Development Centers to help you in business planning, to entrepreneurial assistance, to certification. All of these resources are listed here, briefly described, and the contact information is on them as well. So please pick those up. I'd like to now talk about 2 specific programs. One of them is called the New York State Targeted Loan Fund. You have a flyer in your packets on this. Now, this is a program that was created by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, and New York State a number of years ago to help defense-dependent manufacturers diversify. Over the years, we have diversified the lending program to help other types of small businesses as we saw the need. And this program is available to help businesses negatively impacted by the hurricane, as well as throughout time afterwards. If your business has been negatively impacted and you are eligible for this program is at a 5% interest rate right now. So you may say, well, I'd rather get an SBA loan at a lower rate or a New York State emergency loan at the 1%, and that makes sense. But if you've been rejected by the SBA for one of their disaster loans, or by the New York State loan, and you're eligible for this, think about this program. Now, I keep saying if you're eligible, because not every business is eligible. This program does not apply to pure retail businesses or service businesses whose customers are individual consumers. But if you are a manufacturer, or if you are a wholesale or service business that's business to business, in other words, your customers are other businesses, not-for-profits, municipalities, then you might be eligible for this program. It lends up to $250,000. We can go higher, up to $500,000 on a case-by-case basis for any business purpose. Fixed rate up to 20 years, 5% fixed. And the whole purpose is to help businesses not only recover from this hurricane, but also to expand and grow here on Long Island. So the New York State Targeted Loan Fund for Long Island businesses is something for you to keep in mind. What we are doing is that if you've been negatively impacted by the superstorm and apply for this loan, we are reducing or waiving fees in order to help you. And this is a quick turnaround. It's all handled by Long Island Development Corporation with the assistance of New York State, but we can turn these around fairly quickly. And these are term loans. The other program that I want to talk about is microloans. Microloans is a generic term. When people talk about microloans, they can be talking about anything from $25,000 to $50,000 or more. The SBA has a microloan program which lends up to $50,000. It's handled by a group called CDC of Long Island, Accion New York, Seedco, La Fuerza. All of these groups have what are called microloan programs. Some go up to $25,000, some go up to $35,000, some up to $50,000. They're all summarized in the value-added resource list, so don't worry about getting that information. The program handled by LISBAC, Long Island Small Business Assistance Corp., lends up to $10,000. It's for any business, startup or existing. It's a term loan program. For working capital, we can go out up to 10 years. It's fixed rate. It happens to be a low interest rate. And it's an expedited program. And again, for any businesses that have been negatively impacted by the superstorm, we are reducing or waiving fees, which are minimal to begin with. So microloans, if you need $50,000 or under, that's a category that you should consider for your business. Obviously, the best thing is if you can get grants to help your business. They don't really exist, except sales tax exemption is like getting a grant because you're not going to pay the sales tax. And assistance from the Department of Labor is like getting a grant because it's free assistance. But when it comes to lending, you've got your SBA disaster loans, your New York State loan program, and you've got all the other programs that are out there to serve you on a continuous basis, like the targeted loan and LISBAC. So please keep those in mind, pick up the literature on your way out, and I wish you all the best of success with your businesses and recovery from the superstorm. Thank you.